You don't actually want their attention. Not really. You want what you think their attention will finally prove, that you matter, that you're enough, that if they choose you, maybe you can stop doubting yourself for 5 minutes. And that's where things start falling apart. Because attention feels a lot like love. At first. Someone replies fast, watches your story, likes everything you post, texts you up at midnight. Suddenly your nervous system lights up like you won something. You call it chemistry. Sometimes it isn't chemistry. Sometimes it's withdrawal relief. You don't notice it immediately. You're lying in bed at night, phone on your chest, telling yourself you don't care that much. Then the screen lights up. Their name. Heart rate changes. Mood changes. Energy changes. And that should bother you more than it does. Because here's the uncomfortable question. Why does one person's notification have the power to decide whether tonight feels peaceful or miserable? Sit with that. Not for them. For you. Because the strange part is, people who chase attention usually don't look needy on the outside. They often look independent. Funny. Chill. Detached. Low maintenance. They'll even say things like, "I don't need anyone." That line? Usually armor, not truth. And this is the part most people miss. Attention addiction rarely starts with vanity. It starts with emotional hunger. Big difference. You weren't born craving validation from strangers, lovers, friends, followers, or that one emotionally unavailable person who somehow lives rent-free in your head. You learned to crave it. Somewhere along the way, your brain connected being noticed, with being safe, being chosen, with being worthy, being desired, with being lovable. That wiring doesn't disappear because you became smarter. That's why intelligent people still get trapped in dumb emotional loops. You can understand psychology and still refresh Instagram like a lab rat waiting for pellets. No offense. Actually, maybe a little offense, because sometimes you don't need comfort. You need honesty. Here it is. You say you want love. But sometimes what you're really chasing is evidence. Evidence that you're still desirable, still relevant, still hard to replace. That's not love, that's measurement. And measurement is exhausting. Because no amount of external reassurance stays. Think about it. You get the compliment. Feels good. For a moment. Then what? Your brain moves the goalpost. Did they mean it? Would they still say that if they knew everything? Why did they leave me on scene after that? And now the high is gone. So you need another hit, more attention, more reassurance, more proof. At first, this feels harmless. Everybody likes being liked. Nothing wrong with enjoying attention. The problem begins when attention becomes regulation, when being ignored feels like emotional suffocation, when silence feels like rejection. When delayed replies feel personal, when someone pulling away makes you panic. That reaction tells a deeper story, because healthy love feels grounding. Attention addiction feels urgent. Love says, "I choose you." Addiction says, "Please don't leave me alone with my own thoughts." That changes everything. Read that again. Sometimes the pain isn't losing them. Sometimes the pain is losing what they temporarily helped you avoid. Loneliness, self-doubt. The quiet voice in your head that asks, "Why am I never enough by myself?" That voice. You keep trying to silence it with noise, texts, likes, situationships, flirting, talking stages that go nowhere, posting things you pretend are casual. And maybe the most brutal part, you often know exactly what you're doing. You know when you're posting for validation. You know when you're waiting for one specific person to see something. You know when you're pretending not to care. You knew. You always knew. You were never confused. You were avoiding. And avoidance is sneaky. It rarely looks dramatic. It looks like checking your phone again. Opening the same app. Refreshing messages. Rereading old conversations. Staring at last seen. pretending you're busy while your attention is chained to someone else's attention. But here's what nobody realizes. The more you depend on attention to feel worthy, the less free you become. Because now your emotional state lives in other people's hands. They text, you feel alive. They disappear, you feel small. They praise, you feel valuable. The attention you chase often comes from people who can't actually love you well, not because you're unlucky. Because familiar pain feels strangely safe. And this is where things get uncomfortable. If love in your early life felt inconsistent, warm one moment, distant the next, your nervous system may have learned something dangerous. Uncertainty feels like intimacy. So now, calm feels boring. Consistency feels suspicious. Healthy people feel underwhelming. But emotionally unavailable people, they feel magnetic. Why? Because they activate the old wound. And your brain mistakes activation for connection. That's why you obsess over the person giving mixed signals. Not because they're extraordinary. Because unpredictability creates obsession. The reward becomes random. Sometimes affection, sometimes silence, sometimes warmth, sometimes cold distance. That inconsistency hijacks your attention. Same mechanism as gambling. You keep pulling the lever. Maybe this time they'll choose me. Maybe this time I'll finally feel enough. Wait until you realize why that never works. Because no person can heal a wound you're still using them to hide. That changes everything. You don't heal by finally being chosen by the unavailable person. You heal when being ignored stops feeling like proof of your inadequacy. Big difference. Right now, maybe you think your problem is, I need better people. Maybe. But maybe the deeper problem is this. You still confuse pursuit with value. If someone makes you chase, part of you assumes they must be worth more. If someone is easily available, part of you unconsciously devalues them. Be honest. How many times have you wanted people more after they pulled away? Exactly. That isn't love growing. That's ego reacting. Because rejection doesn't only hurt attachment, it attacks identity. It whispers, you weren't enough. And if you already secretly fear that, rejection feels devastating. But here's the reframe. Someone not choosing you does not automatically mean you were lacking. Sometimes it means mismatch, sometimes bad timing, sometimes emotional incapacity, sometimes they're fighting battles you'll never see. Their inability to love consistently is not a verdict on your worth, but when you chase approval, every interaction becomes a courtroom. You're always on trial, always waiting for a verdict. Pretty enough, interesting enough, funny enough, wanted enough. Exhausting. No wonder you're tired. You're performing for emotional survival. And the wild part? Most people don't even realize how much of their personality is built around being liked. You soften opinions, hide needs, suppress boundaries, laugh when uncomfortable, say yes when you mean no, become easier to keep, smaller to accept, less inconvenient to love, and slowly, you disappear. That's the hidden cost of approval addiction. It doesn't only make you anxious, it disconnects you from yourself. Because every time authenticity threatens rejection, you choose strategy over truth. And this is the part most people miss. Freedom doesn't begin when everyone likes you. Freedom begins when disapproval stops controlling you. Read that slowly. You become dangerous in the best way when you stop negotiating your worth based on response. When a delayed text is a delayed text, not a story, not proof, not identity. When silence stays silence, instead of becoming, they hate me, I messed up, I'm forgettable. No, sometimes people are busy, sometimes distracted, sometimes emotionally unavailable, and sometimes it has nothing to do with you. That last sentence can change a life. Because attention was never love. Attention can be manipulation. Attention can be boredom. Attention can be ego. Attention can be convenience. Love is different. Love is presence, consistency, safety, truth. Love doesn't keep you addicted to uncertainty. Love doesn't force you to perform. Love doesn't make you earn basic care. So if someone gives you attention but leaves you chronically anxious, Look carefully. That may not be love. That may be chemistry mixed with unhealed wounds. And now we reach the real shift. You don't need to stop enjoying attention. You need to stop feeding on it. There's a difference. Enjoy compliments. Enjoy connection. Enjoy being seen. But never let any of it become oxygen. Because the moment your worth depends on attention, you become controllable. By lovers. By friends. By followers. By strangers. By anyone willing to give, or withhold, validation. And you deserve better than living like that. You deserve a nervous system that doesn't collapse in silence. You deserve self-worth that survives rejection. You deserve connection that feels peaceful, not addictive. And maybe tonight, when you put your phone down, the real question isn't, who's thinking about me? Maybe the better question is, why do I need someone else thinking about me to finally feel okay? That question hurts, but it heals too. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And maybe that's the beginning, not of becoming cold, not detached, not someone who stops caring, but someone who no longer confuses being noticed with being loved. If this felt a little too real, maybe that's the part you shouldn't ignore.